Some confessions sound like they should close the case, but instead they open a darker door. Emmerdale's episode airing on Monday, February 16th, feels exactly like that kind of twist. The moment you think you can finally breathe, everything starts getting messier. The whole story circles around Bear as DS Walsh questions him about Ray's death, and Bear admits that he killed Ray. He insists it was an accident, says he acted alone, and what makes me feel both sympathetic and uneasy is how he seems to be struggling to piece together what actually happened. You know that feeling when someone is trying to explain clearly, but the more they talk, the more their confusion shows? In classic Emmerdale fashion, one small slip is enough to change everything. Bear lets something slip that immediately convinces DS Walsh the story isn't complete. And once an investigator senses something is off, they don't stop at a confession. They dig until they find the missing parts. That's where I start getting chills, because this confession might not be meant to end the story at all. It might be covering something bigger. The interview continues, and Walsh brings up Moira, and honestly, this is the part that hits hardest for me, because Bear reveals something that's legally disastrous. He admits Cain pressured him to say Moira was never at Celia's farm. On the surface, it sounds like Cain was trying to create a way out for Moira. But in an investigation, any hint of manipulating testimony usually makes things worse. It raises the exact question investigators love. If she's innocent, why rewrite the story? So instead of helping, Bear's words could push Moira deeper into a complicated, dangerous knot. And I can't shake the feeling that this is the moment the storyline shifts from who killed Ray to who is trying to set what up to save who. That's the tragedy Emmerdale does so well. People make the wrong moves while genuinely believing they're protecting the ones they love. Meanwhile, at the police station, Marlon rushes to stand by Paddy, and Paddy is basically falling apart. Guilt is crushing him. He's terrified that he, Bear, and Dylan could all end up behind bars. He breaks down, blaming himself because everything has spiraled beyond control. And that feels painfully real. Because when something goes wrong, the kindest people are often the first to say, "I should have done something differently." Marlon tries to reassure him that there's still a chance Bear's actions will be seen as self-defense, but if I'm being honest, that hope feels fragile. Self-defense isn't just one sentence you claim and everything's fine. It's evidence, context, threat level, and timing. And when Bear can't fully recall events and has already said something that makes the police suspicious, that self-defense line can easily be twisted into something far less forgiving. Bear's confession gives Cain a thin thread of hope that things might finally turn in Moira's favor. He goes to see her and prepares to come clean about his diagnosis, a moment that should have been emotionally explosive because Cain has been holding it in for so long. But fate cuts in at the worst possible time. A fight breaks out between prisoners, and the moment slips away. Instead of talking about his illness, Cain can only tell Moira that Bear has confessed, and he clings to the belief that it could lead to her release. Moira is much less convinced, and I get it. She's not being negative, she's being realistic. The system doesn't run on hope, it runs on proof. Still, in a situation like theirs, even a tiny glimmer can be enough to keep someone standing for one more day, and sometimes that one more day is everything. The other storyline is the one that genuinely makes my skin crawl, because Arthur and Laurel hit a point that feels hard to come back from. Arthur causes chaos at work, ignores customers while staring at his phone, then has a blazing row with Gabby and quits. Laurel carries so much guilt, feeling responsible for what Arthur has been through, so at first she leans into sympathy, until she catches him searching for his passport and announces he's moving to Australia. Even just the passport detail changes the tone. This isn't a dramatic outburst anymore. It looks like he's actually preparing to disappear. Things get even worse when Laurel intercepts an envelope containing Ray's cash. Arthur admits where the money came from, and then comes the chilling move. Arthur threatens to tell everyone. Laurel hit him unless she lets him leave with the money. In that moment, it stops feeling like teen rebellion and starts feeling like emotional blackmail, turning Laurel into a hostage to her own reputation and life. Laurel is left in tears, and it feels like a boundary has been shattered. Once a relationship shifts from love and conflict into threats and destruction, even if people reconcile later, that cut doesn't just vanish. Looking at the episode as a whole, it feels like a whirlpool. Bear confesses to close the case, but sparks new suspicion. Cain tries to help Moira, yet the pressure on testimony could put her in even greater danger. Paddy is drowning in guilt, while Marlon becomes the person keeping him from breaking completely, and Laurel faces a cold, terrifying threat from Arthur himself. I have a strong feeling this is only part one of the truth, because DS Walsh has already been triggered by Bear's slip, and once suspicion is activated, the questions multiply, the evidence piles up, and sooner or later someone else might be exposed behind those accidental words in the interview room. The question I keep coming back to is this: is Bear protecting someone, or is he simply panicking and letting the story collapse under its own weight? So what do you think Bear is hiding? And will this confession actually help Moira, or just make everything heavier? And with Arthur, do you think he's really going to Australia, or is he using it as leverage to trap Laurel? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll read them and talk it through with you. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next spoilers while they're still hot.